Bullet to the head. I remember, I've told this story before, but it comes to me every time I see that. I remember being in a car park in Cannes, finally interviewing Sylvester Stallone, having been sent to Cannes by Radio 1, who told me, if you don't get Sylvester Stallone, don't come back. And Stallone was there with a half-finished cut of Copland. And in the very brief interview time that I had with him in this car park, I'd been stalking him for the whole of the day to get this, he basically said, well, you know, I'd never do another Rocky or Rambo movie, that kind of action stuff. That would just be, and the word he used was stupid. Of course, then, ironically, he discovered that, in fact, it was possible for, you know, an aging action star to do another Rocky and another Rambo movie. And, in fact, become part of what has now become known as the sort of Expendables bandwagon, whereby every aging action star gets back in the action saddle and makes an action movie, and at some point complains about their hip. So, you know, last week we had Arnold Schwarzenegger in Last Stand getting back out. You know, he does all the stuff, he does the shooting, the running, but every now and then he says, oh, I'm a bit too old for this. We've got in a couple of weeks' time, we've got A Good Day to Die Hard, which is the fourth, fifth, sixth, fifth, I think, Die Hard movie, in which it appears to be Bruce Willis and his son, and there's lots of crashing and falling through things, but there will almost certainly be references to, oh, I'm a bit old for this. And now in the middle of it, we have Stallone back doing yet more of this stuff. And so we've now, actually, that's the Planet Hollywood Royal Flush, isn't it? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone.
You get extra fries for that.
You do. You get extra fries. You get some sauce on the side. So the story is he's a hitman, or he's a villain, gets tied up in a property scam, which will involve him having to team up with a young cop who, during the course of the movie, will get the hots for his daughter, thus providing all manner of conflict of interest, at least the narrative framework of such. I say the narrative framework of such because the story is so irrelevant and so unbothered by its own existence that, in fact, attempting to do a synopsis of it does it, a favour that it doesn't really deserve. The whole thing is directed by Walter Hill, who was kind of, for a while, he was the doyen of 80s action movies, 48 Hours, Warriors, of course, Southern Comfort. This is a film which is old school in the extreme. And here is a clip of Sylvester Stallone. But the question I have for you is this. There's a very, very thin line between pastiche and poop. Which of the two do you think this is?
I've been arrested 26 times. I went to trial 4 times. I got convicted twice. Nowadays, what I'm doing, I just think of it as a business. The people I work for are shit, and the people I take out are worse. I got some rules. No women, no children. Half the money in advance and half when the job is done. Don't trust anybody. That's how you stay in the game. And on this one, the game got rough.
I have a feeling that, with the exception of the Greenwich time signal, halfway through that listeners on 909 and 693, let's acknowledge them, as well as the digital listeners and the online listeners, would have just heard a rumble.
Yes.
So that would just have been a bass noise that was going through.
See, the thing with Bullet to the Head is this. There is a difference between old school, old-fashioned, and just old, or old and tired. And this does look very old and tired. It's attempting to sort of emulate hard-boiled graphic novel tone, but never, ever getting anywhere near it. It seems to function entirely on the basis of nostalgic goodwill. Oh, I used to really like Sylvester Stallone. Oh, I used to really like Walter Hill. I mean, Walter Hill's got an extraordinary career. I mean, his production career is even more extraordinary than his directorial career. I got 5 foot away from interviewing him for the Alien documentary that we made. He was in one room cutting. He was doing something. I think it was Last Man Standing, and his partner was in the room. We were meant to interview both of them, but then in the end he got a bit huffy and we didn't interview. I just got the other one. So I got 5 foot away from interviewing Walter Hill. But he has an extraordinary track record. He hasn't directed for a while. The story with this is that it was originally down to be directed by somebody else. The somebody else then fell out with Sylvester Stallone. One of the other actors then said to Sylvester Stallone, why don't you get Walter Hill? They got Walter Hill out of retirement. Walter Hill came on board. Then Joel Silver then got involved and apparently fired the actor who suggested that they should get Walter Hill in the first place. But it's one of those kind of unholy alliances where it's come together as a, more of a marriage of convenience, as a kind of, we've got a problem, how are we going to fix it, what are we going to do? It doesn't look like there's any passion in the project whatsoever. Now, people can complain and say, oh, well, you're a film critic and you're overreading this stuff. It's just meant to be an action shooter. But the fact of the matter is, you can tell when a film is made by people marking time. And this just looks like a film by people marking time. It's got no vim, it's got no vigor, and it's nothing to do with the age of the lead. It is genuine. It's not old school. It's old and tired and cliched in a way that I think thinks that it's okay, we can get away with this, because in the same way as having Arnie saying, "I'll be back," it's like, it's okay, we can get away from it because there's enough love invested in him doing that for it to be okay. I mean, the scene when Stallone finally has to do the great big, pairing off against the really, really big guy, and they do the standard thing, but they put down the weapons and they pick up, other weapons. And there's one good line.
What weapons?
Well, they pick up axes, and Stallone says something like, "What are we? Like medieval knights." I mean, and that's about as close as it ever gets to zingers. But for most of the time, it just looks like something which is huffing and puffing and harumphing its way around and going from one slightly boring set piece to the next with characters you don't care about. And that's not to do with it being an action movie. It's not to do with it being an exploitation movie. It's not to do with it being a head-cracking movie. It's to do with being a movie which is a bit old and a bit boring, made by people who are genuinely just ticking the boxes. Not good enough.
My favourite one of those action movies, which wasn't cliched and wasn't tired, but was all about showing someone who was maybe past their prime, was the Clint Eastwood movie In the Line of Fire, where he's playing...
And he can't run.
Well, he can barely keep up with the presidential motorcade that he's trying to protect. I just thought that was fantastic.
But the funny thing is...
He'd just gone... He wasn't completely saggy, but that's
a moment in The Line of Fire. It's a moment. There's the whole thing when he's running along. You're absolutely right. There's four of them running along beside the president, and he just gets a little bit wheezy, and it's a moment. We now have a genre of films in which it's the whole film is run, shoot, bang, and then complain about your hip. Run, shoot, bang, and then But in the case of this, it's and as I said, you put it next to Last Stand. I saw Last Stand last week, and I was underwhelmed because I thought Kim Ji-woon could do better. In the case of this, okay, fine, I take it back, Kim. My mistake.